Hello everybody, my name is Nancy Hogshead-Makar, and a quick bio. I'm an Olympic champion from the 1984 Olympics in swimming, and I'm a civil rights lawyer, and I now run an organization called Champion Women. Champion Women is a member of the National Coalition of Girls and Women in Education. I thank them very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about a project that Champion Women is doing that is only possible because of the work of Congress and what Congress has made available when it comes to college athletics. So early on in my legal career, I did a lot of suing schools. The data shows that despite 43 years of Title IX, despite amazing regulations from the Department of Education and the Office for Civil Rights, and despite winning case law in all cases, that women lag behind men by every measurable criteria. Lawsuits are actually fairly easy to win, but they require an enormous amount of time and energy. And I'm trying to find a different way to move the needle for the masses in a big way. I need to be able to make change happen to scale. So most of you know that when you're looking at Title IX compliance, that you just take the law and then you use the facts. So the law is the statute and the regulations. These regulations came out in 1979, and it's called the three-prong test. Okay, the three-prong test says this is what a school has to show in order to be in compliance with Title IX in how many opportunities that the school has to provide. Okay, so for quantitatively, how many opportunities? So prong one is if the student body population and the student athlete population are the same, then your school's good to go. So hypothetically, if a school's 50-50 male-female in its student body population, and then its student athlete population is also 50-50, okay, you're fine, good, way to go. Two is if a school can say, you know what, we're not there quite yet, but we can show a continuous history of improving our sports opportunities and our sports programming for women. So we've measurably added sports, either made teams bigger, we've added teams, or but we're in the march of progress here. 43 years into the statute, it's getting harder for schools to comply with, but not impossible. Prong three says that, you know what, we're not meeting these two tests here. However, we don't have any unmet demand. In other words, everybody that wants to play sports is actually playing sports, so we're good. Okay? All right. So this is the law. Congress passed a statute called the Equity in Athletics Disclosure Act, and because of that statute, there's a lot of publicly available data that anybody can look at to be able to determine whether or not a school is in compliance with Title IX. So the Equity in Athletics Disclosure Act, in case you have not been to it, it kind of looks like this, and it tells what sports and how many men and how many women are participating in sports. So what we did at Champion Women was to look at this data and apply it to the law and determine whether or not schools were in compliance. So every school that we sent a letter to got a chart that looks much like this. So this actually is from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I did go to Duke, but I swear the numbers just came out this way. While women at the University of North Carolina composed 58.6% of the student body, they were only 45% of the student athletes. So there was a big discrepancy, so no way are they going to be able to comply according to step one. Step two, or prong two, I should say, is looking at whether or not do they have a history of continuous improvement. And so here the data shows these are the numbers of unduplicated athletes, and are these numbers going up? Answer, no, they were not. And so they could not be in compliance with prong two. Then the next question is, can they be in compliance with prong three? Can they say that they don't have any unmet interest? And what we used as a proxy there was what percentage of their student body is given a sports experience. And at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, it's about 4.5%. And that percentage really hasn't changed that much in the past 9 years. So we can say that they are not meeting prongs 1, 2, and 3. So then the question becomes, how many athletes does University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill need to add in order to be in compliance? And that the number is 272 for just this past year, or an average of 248 over the last 9 years. Then we looked at scholarship dollars, also available on the website, and we saw that if University of North Carolina was in compliance, that it would be adding every year almost $4 million in athletic scholarship aid per year. Then we looked at recruiting dollars, and we found that University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill was spending $911,000 per year to recruit its male athletes, and it was spending about half that at $408,000 to recruit women athletes. We also looked at the issue of coaching compensation. The issue of women being able to have jobs in coaching as well as how much they're compensated is a big issue. So we looked at this as an opportunity to teach schools about what was permissible and what was not permissible as far as coaching salary goes. One thing that I found is very common is for schools to think that there are two different markets. One is the market for coaching men, and the other is the market for coaching women. This is clearly, flatly prohibited. So there is a market for coaching basketball. There's a market for coaching tennis. There's not a market for men's tennis or women's, okay? So you can say there's a market for one particular person. They have some unique special skills, this person, but what you can't do is pay somebody less because they coach women or because they are a woman. So we used that information and put it in there and showed what the big glaring disparities were in coaching compensation. So after we did this beautiful legal memo, if I do say so myself, we summarized it for them in a separate letter. And then here's the kicker, is we sent it to as broad a group within the university as we could think of. So one of my research assistants literally did nothing but get on the computer and find out who should this letter go to. So obviously the president, the senior women's athletic administrator, the athletic director, and the general counsel. But we wanted to make it broader than that. So we included the faculty athletics rep. We also wanted to include the Women's Studies Department, the Ombudsman, the Title IX Coordinator, the Chief Diversity Officer, the head of Panhellenic, the head of the student body. Different schools name these different tasks, different things, but we, again, tried to find who those people were. If they had a special task force set up, if they had somebody who had a history of interceding on behalf of women athletes somewhere in their school, the head of development, we try to be as creative as we could. And the idea is to not allow athletics to be a silo that operates separate from the rest of the university. That the athletics department is part of the overall school. So letting the head of the tenured faculty committee, letting them know what was going on with athletics. The athletic department has to report on all this data every year to the Department of Education. So they already knew what it was, but most people have no idea what the differences are. And it's not until the whole school will get involved that big changes can be made. My team is getting better and better at finding who the names are and finding out who this should go to and coming up with the tables and getting these letters out. So while initially we targeted 52 schools, we're gonna keep marching on down and get as many schools as we can. We're only able to do this because of the data from the Equity and Athletics Disclosure Act. It would be great if we had something like this in high school that could show whether or not these high schools were in compliance. It's a way to get change to scale. It's a way to not have to use tax dollar resources to get this kind of change. It is a way of having the community come together and say, this is in one of the few areas that we sex segregate boys and girls, men and women. This is how we treat them, that everybody, the entire school gets to see how it is that we treat men and women. So I think that's one of the one of the most important reasons why gender equity is so important. It takes a lot of expertise and effort, and my team is getting better and better at being able to put the tables together and all the names and have the letters go out. So while initially we targeted 52 schools, we would like to expand it as much as possible. So you might be wondering, what's the response that we've gotten from different schools? And University of North Carolina has said that they would like to study the issue for 18 months. Well, I've already given them a definitive legal memo on compliance. They really, and unless their own data is not correct, you have all the information that you need to know in order to be able to go. 250 athletes or 270 athletes is, in many cases, that's somewhere between 4 and 10 teams, depending on how big the school is. So this is, you think about all the other schools and you see how you get these huge discrepancies. Just the top 10 schools, just those alone, the difference in scholarship dollars is $25 million. It's 1,500 athletes, just the top 10. So, that doesn't include their 1,200 NCAA institutions. So schools are way behind. I'm only able to do this project, again, because of Congress, because of the Equity in Athletics Disclosure Act, and how great it would be to be able to have something like this for high schools in order to be able to get change to scale. Right now, girls get 1.3 million fewer sports opportunities than boys do. This doesn't just mean that they're learning how to swim back and forth in a pool or hit a tennis ball back and forth or, whatever the sport requires. We know that this teaches leadership. We know that girls who play sports do better in school. They do more likely to go to college, do better in college, more likely to be in STEM courses. And there's actually a causation component to sports participation with doing better in life. This is a good investment in our tax dollars. Both sports for both boys and girls, despite the myths that you hear that this is funded by tickets or television media, sports is largely funded by our tax dollars. And this is a very good investment for us as a country moving forward. So Champion Women has come up with this project. We would love to be able to expand it into high school. And I'm happy to give you updates as responses come in. Thanks again for this opportunity for the National Girls and Women in Education. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.